known as the One Fig Man on various internet sites such as ourfigs.com. I'm here today to kind of give you an intro on drip irrigation systems and irrigation systems in general. I use mine for my fig trees. I have roughly, I would say I'm down to about 190 fig trees, about 140 to 150 fig trees on a drip irrigation system. I have a multi-part video series set up to discuss my irrigation system and how to modify it for yourself, as well as how to put in a drip irrigation system without any complex processes. You could have 5 pots on a irrigation system, or a couple of miscellaneous plants, or you can have something very elaborate up to like 500 plus trees if you were really going to go that big. So the multi-part series is basically broken up into various steps, and the steps are designed to really show the processes that I went through to put together the irrigation system. So we're going to go across multi-videos, and some of the videos that we're going to talk about is first, basically how to measure the water that you have available that's going to be going into your system. And that includes the volume of water as well as the pressure the water is going to be going into your irrigation system. The second video that I'm going to discuss or go into is basically the water usage and the emitters. So essentially the water that is going to be coming out of your system. Then we're going to kind of to touch upon how to plan your layout, where to put, if you're going to be using pots, how to lay out the pots, at least what I did to lay out the pots. And then we're going to move into another video about tubing selection and how I chose the tubing to use for my system. I used a polyvinyl, I believe it is, as well as a PVC tubing. I'm sorry, it's polyethylene tubing I used, in addition to the polyvinyl chloride or PVC tubing, which is a harder tubing. And then I'm going to talk about some of the header, which is a bunch of components that usually go on in the beginning of your system. Those things are such as timers, backflow preventer, a filter if you're going to use that, a pressure reducer, and talk about some of the adapters a little bit. You may not need all these pieces, but I will just touch upon some of it. And then I'm going to create another video. I hope I have to see what information I have available and what I've used, as well as what else is out there in the market, to discuss the timing devices and the types of automation systems that are out there. There's I found some miscellaneous issues, I would say, about various timing devices. If you're going to be using a bib or a spigot, or basically the faucet that is coming on the outside of your house, should you put a timer directly in there, or should you use solenoids and valves and create a more complex timing system? So I'll discuss that video as well. So I really hope you'll join us for the parts. I'm going to try to figure out on YouTube how to make a playlist to include all these items, so you can kind of go right through the playlist. And thank you very much for watching, and let's proceed to start our videos. Thank you very much. Before we start going into our next videos about discussing how to calculate the water that's coming out here, or take other measurements of the water that's coming out of this bib, let me start off by saying there are multiple ways to run an irrigation system. Some people want to use a bib or a spigot like this, where you can just turn it on and have water come out. Other people can utilize different areas such as rain catch systems, or they can use direct plumbing, which is basically they tap into their main supply of water in their house and they can bring it out of there. And there are people that can use well systems where they pump water out of a lake or another water storage area. And the overall process is basically the same. You have your supply, and then you have miscellaneous components that they put on the header. Some people will install a timer here. Other people will install a timer maybe underground, or if they're going to use a valve system, they're going to use a more complex timing device. Or you could just do it manually, where you come by and just turn on your spigot and you get the water going, and it runs through your system and provides irrigation to your field, your crops.
So let me just touch bases really upon it. So if you put a timing device, you're going to put a timing device on first. This will allow the water to shut off downstream, even though it's always going to be on at the source. Then after, you're going to put on essentially a backflow preventer. Backflow preventer is what stops the water from going back into your drinking supply or push back down into the pump or what have you, whatever is going back upstream. You don't want the water that was going into the field that may have contaminants in it to go back into your main supply. You could be using fertilizer, or there could just be miscellaneous material that gets in at the actual emitters where the water is going to be coming out and travel back up. Then after you put in your backflow preventer, then there are a plethora of filters out here, and you would install essentially a filter next. Obviously this is not the right filter for this setup, but this is just the general idea that you'd go ahead and put on a filter. Then essentially you'd put on a pressure reducer, and that will basically, this is called a pressure regulator. It will regulate the pressure so it's a constant PSI for your system. That stands for pounds per square inch. And then finally after that, you would have an adapter, and you would run your hose to the adapter into the pressure regulator. And this is essentially the system. Then from the hose, you put in your emitters, and they can connect directly to this, or you can create connectors off of this into these individual emitters that are going to the various items you're looking to irrigate. This is a general overview. You could definitely create different types of processes going into manifolds, breaking it apart into zones where you could supply different crops a certain amount of water based off of what you have coming in. So essentially if you need 100 gallons out in the field and you only have 50 gallons coming out, then basically you can create two zones. So you have 50 gallons going to one zone and 50 gallons going to another zone, and there's your 100 gallons for the entire field. But let's get into our supply, taking some measurements of our supply, and figure out how to put all this together. I hope you join me for my video series. Thank you very much.